I spent 6 years as county controller, chief financial officer, so I dealt with all the issues behind the scenes, and now this is my second year as county executive. And you see a disconnect between what the finance industry wants and what the people you represent want. Because if you go to a Moody's or an S&P or a Fitch, they want to see municipal governments raise their property tax. There's a reoccurring revenue that helps pay for your budgets and therefore gives you a higher credit rating. Where, of course, if you talk to the voters, the last thing they want to see is higher property taxes. I say that because in Erie County, for the last 10 to 15 years, the community's made a conscious decision to have one of the lowest property taxes, but also have one of the highest sales taxes. If we had the entire contribution that the county provides from Medicaid taken over by New York State, we could eliminate our entire property tax, because we actually spend more money in Erie County on Medicaid than we do, and we take in our property tax. This community made a decision years ago to have a higher sales tax, 8.75%, which was one of the highest sales taxes in New York State. We also have one of the lowest taxable rates with regards to property tax at $5.34. So if you live in Erie County and you have a $100,000 house, and the average house in Erie County is about $120,000, you're only paying $540 a year for your property taxes. It's not a lot of money for the services that you're actually getting. But the public doesn't, there's no appetite out there. Every time a school district has a vote for a tax increase, if it's above the property tax cap, it gets defeated. I cannot get property tax increase through my legislature, and I proposed a very small one last year that would have cost the average homeowner $1.50 a month, and that was rejected. So what do we have to do instead? We have to look at ways of cutting our services. As we noted, we have such a small amount that we control, and the vast majority of it is out of our hands. We have to look to Albany, as you're hearing from all of us, for assistance in that area. And what we're seeing from Albany is helping out. I'm not gonna sit here and criticize it, because just the cap on Medicaid growth, which will take full effect as of next year, is having tremendous impacts. Because we have a control board in Erie County, it's an advisory status now, but just because it's like New York City, there's a control board still for New York City. It's an advisory status. The control board for New York City requires New York to prepare a budget and a 4-year financial plan. We're required to have a budget and a 4-year financial plan, which we submit to our control board on an annual basis. When I submitted my budget last year, they approved the budget, they approved the 4-year financial plan. I think long-term planning, especially financial plans, as the county executive noted, is something every community should be required to have, whether they have a control board or not. Because you may be able to see that, yes, we can get through this year, but if you look out to the second, third, and fourth out year, you immediately find the problems. If we did not have the 4-year financial plan, we would really not have a good idea of what our health care costs are going to be 3-4 years down the line. And we know within a 4 to 5 year period, the cost for our retirees' health care is actually going to be greater than the cost for our current employees' health care. And how do you solve that problem? You don't. Because by law, they get that health care, truthfully, until they die. So then you start looking at actuarial tables and figure out how much it's going to cost me over the next 5 to 10 years on health care. And the numbers are staggering, truthfully. Erie County has multiple memorandums of understandings, agreements with various towns to be sharing services, whether it's snow plowing, assessing, you name it. The one thing that you're not going to see, because New York is a home rule state, is the consolidation and elimination of governments. Kathy's right. There have been attempts in Erie County to do that. There's an advocate in Erie County who wants to see villages disbanded. And he'll get some of his folks to go out there, he pays them, they go door to door, they get petitions signed to have a dissolution vote among the voters to dissolve villages. And every time he does this, it overwhelmingly fails. Because, as Kathy noted, people want their village government. They want their town government. They want their school districts. We have so many school districts, it's ridiculous. There's a town in Erie County called Cheektowaga, which used to have about 125,000 residents. It's below 100,000 now, and the average age is over 50. It still has 5 school districts, and they're just finally coming to the table now to discuss, well, maybe we should merge these school districts because we don't have anywhere near the students we once did. I think that's where you're going to see it happening, whereas on the sharing of services, because if it doesn't happen, we're not going to be able to afford to just do it on our own in the long run. And with regards to your original question on the comptroller's financial review analysis, Erie County is still being reviewed, so I don't want to say anything negative about it. We're hoping for a good review, but I did see the reports that came in when they were announced. And what the comptroller is releasing is basically the same thing that you'll see in a report that's issued by the rating agencies, whether it's Moody's, S&P, or Fitch. but no one in the public ever sees the rating agency reports. They're public, but they never see them. Now, if the government announces they got an increase, they'll do a little press release about it. Our rating went up, and we'll talk about it, but no one reads the actual report. What the comptroller is doing is taking what they do, the rating agency analysis, and now putting it into a document saying, not only am I going to tell you whether this county or this town or this village is in distress, I'm going to tell you the reasons why, which is the same thing that we'd see in the rating agency report. But for the first time, it's really becoming public, and I think that's a useful tool because it tells not only the elected officials what they're doing right or wrong, but it is telling the public where the significant problems lie, and you have an independent body doing it as compared to the elected officials themselves who, I'm an elected official. People don't always trust everything that comes out of your mouth. When you say everything's great, they'll always question it. But when an independent body does it, there's a lot more strength to what's included in the report. So I think it's good in the long run, and will certainly hold accountable elected officials because someone's telling them what they've got to fix, that the public can say, yeah, I trust that. Because truthfully, I don't know, and nor do I think in many cases, does an assembly member or a senator from Manhattan or Bronx really understand the issues that I have in Erie County. That's just the way that New York State's set up. I'm not being especially critical of that person, but I understand. You go to the assembly, you're to represent your assembly district. You're not to worry about what's happening in Buffalo or Cheektowaga, because you're there to represent your assembly district. But in the end, the decisions that assembly member or that senator makes are going to have a direct impact on what happens in Buffalo and Cheektowaga, New York. And so I think we just have to have better lines of communication so truthfully they understand. And I would love to have more of those assembly members and senators come up to Buffalo and see what we're dealing with. I'll be open and invite to them to do that, and I will continue to do that. Not many of them take up on it, though.